नाम श्रेष्ठं मनुमपि सचिपुत्रमत्र स्वरूपम् रूपं तस्याग्रजम् उरुपुरीं माथुरीं गोष्ठवाटिम् राधा कुंद गिरिवरम ओहो राधिका माधवाशा प्राप्तो यस्य प्रथित कृपया श्री गुरुं तं नतोऽस्मि निन्दन्तं पुलकोत्करेण विकसत् नीपप्रसूनच्छवि प्रोद्वीकृत्य भुजद्वयं हरिहरीत्युच्चैर्वदन्तं मुहुः नृत्यन्तं द्रुतमश्रुनिर्जरचयैः सिञ्चन्तमुरवीतलम् गायन्तं निजपार्षदैः परिवृतं तं गौरचन्द्रं स्तुमः आलिभिः परिपालितः प्रबलितः सानन्दमालोकितः प्रत्याशं सुमनः फलोदयविधां सामोदं मामोदितः वृन्दारण्यभुवि प्रकाशमधुरा सर्वातिशायि श्रिया राधा माधवयोः प्रमोदयतु माम् उल्लासकल्पद्रुमः जयति जयति राधे प्रेम सारैरगाधे जयति जयति कृष्णस्तत्र सा स्वादकामी जयति जयति वृंदा जयति जयति सख्या वृंदम जयति जयति वृंदारण्यं तारधाम जय रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ ए जय गोसाई रखरी चरण बंदन जहाँ होते विघ्ननाश अभीष्ट पूरण हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे श्याम जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे. So I'm very sorry. I have to really excuse myself. And it was for 5-6 days now, there was no, I think an entire week has gone without me making a new video. And the imperative is there to churn out the product. But as it is, I came to a somewhat complex portion of the text where many, many different stories from the Bhagavatam are being referred to. And so I had to do some research. And so I went back, and as you may know, we have the Gaudiya Grantha Mandir. And so this Gaudiya Grantha Mandir, when I read something, I don't just read something nowadays, right? I have to, especially if it's Bhagavatam or something like that, I try to go to the original text and to edit the material that we have on the Grantha Mandir, so that, so that to some extent, my understanding of the text is reflected in the way that it has been edited, right? Like where the pauses should go, where the commas need to go, where the full stops need to go, that kind of thing. Where some other text is being referenced to, and so on, these kinds of things. So this is the kind of editing work that I'm trying to do on the Grantha Mandir. So that's what I ended up doing. So I did a lot of that for the last couple of days because we have to go through the Jaya and Vijaya story again. So the Kumaras and the Jaya and the Vijaya story. And then we have the Syamantaka Mani story, which is there. And then there's the Muchakunda story with Kalayavana. And all these stories are of mixed importance, or degrees of importance. But the ones that are really given big importance are the ones of the Jaya and Vijaya. So the different ins and outs of the Jaya-Vijaya story, those things have to, as it is told in the 3rd canto and the 15th chapter, the 16th chapter. And then that also develops into it, because if you remember the story, the Kumaras come to Vaikuntha seeking the audience of Narayan. And they go through the 6 outer walls, the 6 outer gates, and there's 7 gates, right? And so you have to come to the inner sanctum is in the 7th, passing the 7th gate. So they came to the 7th gate, and the guards stopped them. So the Kumaras felt that they had the right to go wherever they liked, and who the hell were they to stop them from going there? And but Jaya and Vijaya were adamant, and so the Kumaras cursed them, right? And then Vishnu comes, and the Kumaras are there, and they suddenly realize that, well, first of all, they see Krishna, they see Vishnu, and they were Brahmavadis. And so they had they were liberated souls, and that's really what gave them the right, let's say, to go wherever they wanted. Who's going to stop me? I'm a Brahma-realized soul, yeah? Besides, I just have a baby's body, right? I just have a baby's body. They're only 5 years old. The Kumaras are the first sons of Brahma. Shiva is after, Narada is after. The 4 Kumaras, they were the first. And Brahma told them to get married. He was training. Well, they weren't, but they were very intelligent, obviously. They were too intelligent for their father. Their father wanted them to become, Prajapatis like himself. He was his job now is to multiply and fill the universe with life. And so how to do that? Well, he needs agents. So those are the Prajapatis. So those Prajapatis are who? Those Prajapatis are his own children. Just a moment, let me get some water. Anyway, so the Kumaras, they're 5 years old, but they're smart enough to figure out what's going on. And in those 5 short years, they've already studied the entire Veda from their father. So they're in the young bodies, but their minds are those of the greatest geniuses of all time. And they came to the conclusion that their father wanted them to get involved in married life and to have children and so on, and to populate the universe, right? Later on we'll have stories of other Prajapatis. Of the most famous one is Daksha. But all the 7 rishis, they're also Prajapatis. Kashyapa and, so Kashyapa and all these others, that they were having plentiful children. So, coming back to the story of Jaya and Vijaya, so the Kumaras come there and they want to come into the palace. Jaya and Vijaya stop them. The Kumaras curse them. And then what happens is Narayan comes scurrying there, and his primary objective is to pacify the 4 Kumaras. So what happens is when the 4 Kumaras see Narayan coming, they get a whiff of the scent of the tulasi mala, right? The tulasi from that has been placed upon his feet. And when that enters into their nostrils, then suddenly they realize that standing here in front of them is that very same Brahman that they had been meditating on. They were akshasha jusham. They were situated in knowledge of the aksha, of the transcendent. So, but even so, it made sankrobham. Sankrobham akshara jusham api chitta tanvo. Sankrobham. It created a commotion in their minds and in their hearts and in their bodies. Ashtasatvika vikars. So they recognize this is something special. And they recognize that this is, so the point that's being made, of course, is the essence of the whole story is that Bhagavan realization and Brahman realization, that there's a difference between the two. When the first sons of Brahma, the ones who had renounced everything, they had renounced the whole world, they had renounced Dharma, Artha, Kama, all for the sake of reaching transcendence. And they had reached it. They were akshaja jusham. They were transcendental to the material condition. But despite that, their minds and bodies were affected by the sight and smell, especially the smell of the Lord's bodily fragrance mixed with tulasi and other flowers. So, that's one of the stories. And then the next one was the Shamantaka Mani. So the Shamantaka Mani, I'll leave that. I had to divide the whole thing into 2 because there's a lot here about Jaya and Vijaya. So the problem that Jiva Goswami is dealing with. So the story comes in a particular context. The exact context here now is no longer the aspect of the Kumaras, although that is going to play a role. The chief thing here that we're trying to understand is what the heck is going on with Jaya and Vijaya. So Jaya and Vijaya are Nitya Parshads. They're Krishna's eternal, they are Narayan's eternal associates. They have the service of guarding his door. They see him every day. They see him every day, they are his servants. They know him, they see him for all eternity. They get the pleasure of seeing him several times a day, or maybe once a day. But it is so worth seeing Krishna that they get that pleasure on a regular basis. That is their chief pleasure. That is their only pleasure. So then how is it that these 4 Brahmavadis, these Kumaras, who don't even have bhakti. They come marching up to the main gate there of Vaikuntha, and they just think that they can walk right in. And Jaya and Vijaya are actually doing their job. They're saying, you don't have the right to enter into this inner sanctum of bhakti. The Gyanis, really, according to the Indian concept of what is a Gyani, right? The Gyanis cannot enter here. That is a fact. So the Kumaras came, and Jaya and Vijaya stopped them, and the Kumaras cursed them. Aha. Now how could that curse possibly work? What's going on here? Once you've attained, yad gatva nanivartanti, tadhama paramang mama. Once you get there, you're never going away. What's the you've reached the ultimate pinnacle of possibilities. You see God with a spirit of service, and you're actually doing a service. Just by doing what you're doing a service to Krishna, and you get to see him every day. So what's the business of the curse of 4 Brahmavadis who were rightfully being kept outside of this inner sanctum where only the charama bhakti can go? There have to be guards. Okay? That's why you often see, like in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and other places, you keep this, and also usually at the end, like in the Bhagavad Gita, end of the Bhagavad Gita, was it the Natapaskaya? Just don't go around telling this to these kinds of people are not qualified to hear the Bhagavad Gita. So they can't enter the 7th gate. And that is precisely one of the points that is being made here. Is that what's going on when you say that somebody can or cannot see God? So Jaya and Vijay were guarding the door, and we're saying to the 4 Kumaras, you cannot see God. The 4 Kumaras, they think they've already seen God. Right? They think they've already seen God. They're Akshara Jusham. And so, the 4 Kumaras, they think that they can go anywhere. So Narayan comes, and when the 4 Kumaras see him, then they are transformed, and they are able to understand what is bhakti. So it was actually necessary for Krishna himself to come in order for them to be able to enter into his inner sanctum. Krishna had to come there and transform their consciousness by giving them a vision of him. It's actually quite, this is quite stunning because, it's a difficult topic. What does it mean to see God, right? Everybody says, have you seen God? Of course, nobody asks me that anymore. But at any rate, have you seen God? So now the thing is that this is giving us a bit of a guide. We're getting a guidance from the Bhagavatam. From these stories, we're getting some guidance into what it means to see God. And it's accepted, Jiva Goswami has accepted it, that seeing God is the goal. But now he is asking, you see, when the Avatara is here, so people get to see God, but their consciousness is faulty in some way. And so that external manifestation of Krishna as God, as the Avatar, or that manifestation of Krishna as the saint, right? As the guru. Or as our consciousness expands further and further into our closest people, our friends, our family, our wives, our children. And gradually it expands further and further and further until Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But I'm already taking up a lot of time here with my own introduction. But these are some of the subjects that are being covered, and so I've been trying to understand myself what's going on here, what Jiva Goswami is getting at. And so I've been studying the sections and trying to understand the stories in their form. And with the Shamantaka story, it was important to go and study the earlier versions in Harivangsha and Vishnu Purana. So I hope that you will come and hear about Shamantaka's story also, because I think that's going to be a bit interesting. At any rate, let's go and dig deep into what, after that long introduction, we have the story of Jaya and Vijaya. And that is being told, and what the particular problems that Jiva Goswami is going to deal with here. So the title is 7.8, right? This is Anuccheda 7, this is the 8th subsection. Sometimes a pure devotee appears to be completely overcome by Māyā. The case of Jaya and Vijaya. Right. So yatha. So we've been talking previously about Balaram and so on. The Brajavasis, they were given as examples of people who had a particular lapsus, let's say, in relationship to Krishna, in externally. So here, so he's talking about Lila-shakti. Right? So this is an important thing here. And this will become quite important, and I think, I don't know if anyway, Lila-shakti, we're going to have to talk about quite a bit about that in the next couple of days, because that's what the real subject is here. So this Lila-shakti was also active in Jaya and Vijaya, in their birth as demons. So yatha daitya janmani Jaya-Vijaya yoho. Atra purvesham swalpa eva tadabhasaha tayostu samyag iti vishesha tat premadinam anavaranat avaranat cha. Okay? This is writing by a person whose mind has been trained by sutras. So the example is being given of the workings of the Lila-shakti in the birth of Jaya and Vijaya. So all those subjects that I brought up in my introduction, those are all the workings of Lila-shakti. So now, atra purvesham swalpa eva tadabhasaha. So now, you had this abhasa of the sinfulness, let's say. What we could call some straying from pure devotion. Some straying from the perfectional state that we would expect of someone who is a pure devotee. So the standard is very high in their case. Nowadays, when we are looking for we have much. Well, we should talk about that when we get to the Shamantaka Muni story, because that Shamantaka Muni story is really one where the whole thing is about fault finding, and that makes it very interesting also. Okay, but let's go on with Jaya and Vijaya. So whatever sinful nature or whatever whatever faults we might find with them, for somehow having fallen short of our idea of what it should be to be a pure devotee of the Lord, right? So that was swalpa eva. tadabhasa. So first of all, it was an abhasa. Abhasa means something that's external. It's something that you see externally, but it's not affecting the internal part. It doesn't. It's not. It's an appearance. It's an appearance. Even if their motives and so on all appear to be somehow or another erroneous, or somehow or another lacking what we idealize. When we idealize the idea of a pure devotee, what is it to be a pure devotee? What is that? Certainly we don't want him to be engaged in any kind of sinful act. And of course it's very, very difficult not to see the human aspect of the Guru and miss the transcendent aspect. But of course, if that shadow comes, right, that abhasa, well, it always causes problems. And nevertheless, it should be understood that we have to look at the swarup, at the basis of the character, and not at the manifestation of external misdemeanors. I say misdemeanors because there's always so here in this particular case, you see, Balaram and so on, and I've been reading the Shamantaka Muni also, the Shamantaka Muni, not the Shamantaka Muni. But the Shamantaka Muni story is all about finding fault with Krishna. So first of all, so in Balaram or in the Brajavasis, we might find some something that was less than perfect, right? And we all find, all of us have our misgivings. The Puranas are full of stories that will naturally make you have misgivings. They're there to, it's like there are problems to solve. Why the heck? The Mahabharata is full of problems to solve. Was this the right way to act? Was this the right way to act? Of course, it's a story for kings and so on. But here, let's get back to the story, right? So what was happening in Balaram and so on, that it was superficial, let's say. But in the case of Jaya and Vijaya, it was complete. So the essence of non-devoteeship, right? Smarta vyaksatatam Vishnu vismarta vyoda jatu chit. Sarve vidhi nishedha syuhu etayor eva kinkara. Right? Everything is a servant of remembering Krishna or not forgetting Krishna. So all these signs of sinfulness, whatever they might happen to be, all these signs of a defect, right? They're all signs of forgetfulness of Krishna. So how could my guru, let's say, or how could that Vaishnava that I admire, how could he become forgetful of Krishna? And in that way also we become forgetful of Krishna. But in this particular instance, okay, so now the problem is that Jaya and Vijaya, how they became completely, with the Brajavasis and with Balaram, they might have forgotten Krishna or acted in some way that wasn't exactly appropriate to the relationship, let's say. So that makes one doubt. So, but that was just a minor thing for Balaram, just a minor thing for the Brajavasis. What did they care for a few moments? What is that? Somehow or another, like Mother Yashoda when she goes to take the boiling milk, she puts Krishna down. That's the way the Brajavasis forget Krishna. They make choices that were meant to please Krishna, even if they don't please Krishna right away. That's what it means to be in the Vatsalya Rasa. So they couldn't forget him for even a moment. How is it possible? But even so, even if it appears that they forget him, that's an abhasa. So tayastu samyak, but with the case of the Jaya and Vijaya, it was not like that. In the case of Jaya and Vijaya, it was complete, total forgetfulness, like they had fallen. Right. So this is the story Babaji will mention in his commentary. This Jaya and Vijaya story is sometimes used to support the idea of a fall from Vaikuntha. And that's not altogether an illogical argument, right? But of course, it's not our Siddhanta, if you want to put it that way. Jiva Goswami has discussed that. He doesn't consider that to be the proper understanding. Jaya and Vijaya are a special case. They're not just anybody, and they're going to the material world. It's like Krishna's own going to the material world. It's going to serve some purpose for the pleasure of Krishna. So the whole story was rigged, that Krishna was going to come to the world to do a little bit of demon killing, and he wanted Jaya and Vijaya to go down there and give him a good fight. They are doorkeepers, so they have a Kshatriya spirit. Yes, you do, let's have a fight. Come on, let's go. Let me have some fun. And so they were going to have a fight. Strong people like to fight. They want someone who's going to give them a good fight. Or at least, now this is something important, I think. And this is something that requires a little bit more subtle understanding of the bhakti path and why stories are so important. It's about the rasa, yeah? So to enter into it. So if we want to enter into it, we have to, hear about it. And we have to hear it properly explained also. Explained in such a way that we understand it. It's not just a superficial story. That it has actual pungent meaning for our lives. So what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to see God. So now, what are the different ways of seeing God? That is the subject under discussion. And this is what he says here. He says, Tad premadinam anavaranat avaranat cha. Right? So premadinam, in the case of the Baladev and the Brajavasis, their love was not it was anavarat. It was quickly uncovered again. So covering abhasa, it somehow indicates that the fullness of it is not there. It's just a reflection. It's just a shadow. It's the semblance. It's the external appearance of the thing. It's not the real thing. Right? That's what it means to have an abhasa. So an abhasa and abharana, they are related, because if you remove the abharana, if you remove the covering that is somehow impeding the full light from shining, then you get a reflection, or you get a distorted light of some sort. A reflection. It's not the real thing. It's only a reflection of the real thing. It's only the appearance of the thing. All right. So anavaranat, avaranatcha. The difference between the Brajavasis and Baladev in the two cases that were mentioned in the previous Anuccheda, the previous lecture, there, that was only alpa, swalpa. Swalpa eva tadabhasa. But tayostu samyak iti vishesha. So what is the measuring stick that we're using to understand what is a shadow and what is the real thing? Well, it is a question of to what degree is their love for Krishna uncovered or covered. So in the case of Jaya and Vijaya, when they become the demons, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, and so on, then their Krishna bhaktatva They're not putting on tilak and going out in the street and doing Harinam. They are more like the enemies of the devotees. So they're playing the role of the enemies of God and the enemies of the devotees, and somehow or another they want to kill God. That's the role that they're playing. And so we can have a mighty battle. And of course, God always wins. And that no matter how good a fight. So in actual fact, what is going on is that Jaya and Vijaya are entering the material world to put on a play in which they will play a particular role in which they will not be devotees at all. But in a sense, they will always be devotees because they cannot stop thinking of Krishna. So even if they're playing the role of enemies, they're still always thinking of Krishna. They're always meditating on Krishna. They're always thinking how they can somehow or another destroy Krishna. Now, to what extent do they have love of God? It depends, we look at to what extent it's covered or uncovered. That's how we'll know whether it's the real thing or a false thing. Just an appearance thereof. So that's the introduction. Let me now read the translation by the translation, current working translation. Please excuse me. Oh, because I'm using the wrong. Come on. Can you get away? All right. The Lila-shakti was also active in Jaya and Vijaya in their birth as demons. In the earlier cases, in other words, of the Brajavasis and Baladeva, with which the previous Anuccheda ended, the semblance of the absence of pure bhakti was minor. But in the case of Jaya and Vijaya, it was complete. So it really is the abhasa that we're talking about here, right? It's the swalpa eva tadabhasa. It means that the tadabhasa, that is swalpa. But in the other ones, it's the tadabhasa that is samyak. So what he's saying here is that it's not that they really lost devotion. They haven't really lost the devotion. Okay. So Jaya and Vijaya, in the form of Hiranyaksha and so on, they're still thinking of Krishna. They die fighting Krishna. But Krishna is playing with them, so they don't see a ferocious Krishna. They see the Krishna that they wrestle with as children. They see the Krishna that is their loving friend. After a good fight, they're best friends again. They have had the glorious opportunity to give Krishna the fun of playing and fighting. And it was a jolly good fun for everyone. But the appearance, external appearance, is that they had lost their bhakti, that they were not devotees, that they were demons. So, Krishna came and killed them, but he did it in a way that had the result of them, let's say, after having a joyful holiday, now they can go back to just think if you're in material terms, they go back to Vaikuntha. And they're the other guards, they're not the only doorkeepers. A doorkeeper doesn't stay in front of the door 24 hours. In Vaikuntha, there's descriptions of Vaikuntha always seem that it's full of people it's a city full of people who are walking this way and that way, doing their different activities. So Jaya and Vijaya have their service at the palace, the innermost palace of Vaikuntha. But there are other people there who are also servants, and so they can talk among themselves. So for all eternity, Jaya and Vijaya will glorify the pastimes of the forms of Narayan, with whom he had the good fortune to witness directly in these leelas from a privileged position. It's as if you were playing in Shakespeare, right? So you have Othello, and then you have the one who conspires against him. So now, if you were acting, let's say, with Laurence Olivier playing Othello, or some other great grand actor playing Othello, and you got to play this other role of the one who is the evil plotter and the one who covets Othello's wife and so on. So it's a play. So the person, the actor who gets the opportunity to play with Othello, well, that's something to talk about, right? You can talk about that right into your retirement. You can talk about that for all eternity. I was at the Shakespeare Festival, and I played Othello with the great Laurence Olivier for X number of seasons. Would be something to remember. For all eternity, if Laurence Olivier were God. So for some he's God, so that would be something that they would remember. But of course, you can carry that over to other things also, sports or whatever. I played with Gretzky. So you'd have to be pretty good to get there. And it would be a fulfillment of your personal talent to be there with the best. And not only to be the best in terms of what was required for that role and for that relationship. It would be a thing to remember. So this is Jaya and Vijaya's great privilege. They've been chosen to play the role of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, of Shishupala, and so on. So Shishupala is going to get involved in this. Let's move on. All right? So let's see. So the Lila-shakti was also active in Jaya and Vijaya in their birth as demons. In the earlier cases, in other words, of the Brajavasis and Baladev, with which the previous semblance of the absence of pure bhakti was minor, in the case of Jaya and Vijaya, it was complete. This difference is due to the fact that in the first cases, the devotee's love for Krishna was not covered, but in the second it was. So it should be like to the degree that, it was not covered. Right. Let's move on. So tatra tayor vairabhava prapto khalu muni kritatvam nasyat matam tume ityatra bhagavat ichhayah tatkarnatvena stapitatvat. So this is something that's already been discussed before, and we get the verse here. The full verse, well, let me say, it says, Tatra tayor vairabhava prapto khalu muni kritatvam nasyat. So he says that they become the enemies of God. So it appears that the four Kumaras are cursing Jaya and Vijaya to take 3 births as demons. And Jaya and Vijaya, well, of course, it looks like the 4 Kumaras have cursed Jaya and Vijaya. But he says that's not the case. Uh, the authors of that curse, or the fact that that curse is functional, is purely because Krishna desires it, because Narayan desires it. Right? So this is what Narayan himself says. The feeling of animosity towards Bhagavan acquired by Jaya and Vijaya was certainly not caused by the curse of the sages, the Kumaras, because he himself states that his desire was the reason for it. Matang tu me. That's what he says. Matang tu me. Matang here means approved. So it was approved by me. So I might not have done the external activity, but things are going on according to my will. So I approved this. If I wanted to stop it, I could have stopped it. That's exactly what he says. Bhagavan anugovaha yatam ma vaishtam astusham. Bhagavan anugovaha yatam ma vaishtam astusham. Brahmatejaha samarthopi hantum neche matam tume. Very good verse. Sanskrit is excellent. Again, Bhagavan anugavaha yatam ma vaishtam astusham brahmatejaha samarthopi hantum neche matam tume. So the ending word, that's what's been drawn. This will be quoted again. He says, it's matam tume, it's my wish that this is what should happen. So therefore, Brahma Tejaha, this exercise of power by Brahmins, because of course the Brahmins, through their Brahma realization, are full of Brahma Tejaha. They are one with Brahman. They are one with the universe. So how could they are filled with the power of the universe? So they are nirlipta, they have no connection really. If they curse someone, that's going to come out of their accumulated power. So this is really what's is a bit mysterious to Western people. The idea of accumulated tejaha. Brahma Teja, it's the Hindu concept, right? Universal Hindu concept. Brahma Teja, that the one who is in Brahma realization, that he is full of life, he is full of the light, he is full of power. He is somehow through austerity and through penance and through worshiping God, that somehow or another he's become filled with Godness. By meditating on God, by becoming one with God, he's become filled with the divine power, filled with Godness. He may still walk around in a human body, but he's no longer simply a human being. He is that, because he has realized that he is that. He knows that he is that. Tat Tvamasi. So that's, in that knowledge, if they interact with the world, they interact from a position of transcendence, of autocrats. Sometimes in the Upanishad it says very wonderfully, they're like bulls in the village. Nobody gets in their way. Because they are strong, they are full of power. But of course, they are filled with this power, but they, let's say, use it wisely. So they use it judiciously. So now here, Krishna, Narayan is saying, I wished it. All right. So the main thing here is the fighting, but also the externals of the whole thing are also involved, right? In actual fact, Krishna wanted to have all this happen. So he says, Bhagavan anugo aha, yatam, go, yatam, dual, to you too, you too, go. Yatam ma bhaishtam, don't be afraid. Astusham, go in peace. Brahma tejak samarthopi, I could hantum, I am capable of killing or destroying this Brahma teja. It's nothing for me. This product, the Kumaras don't know who they're dealing with. Let's put it that way. So I could stop anything if I so wished. So here matang to me, it's approved by me. So I don't want to do it. I can, but I don't want to do it. But don't worry. It's okay. It's a good thing. It's going to be a good thing. So that's quite a nice little bit of human, because we have to take these things as being humanly relevant. If we don't find their human relevance, what's the point? Some strange story that I don't understand at all. Where our subject here is somehow or another, how did Jaya and Vijaya forget Krishna? But this curse to forget Krishna, this curse to be demons, that's Krishna's wish. He wants it to happen. So externally it might have gone through this particular action, which is not unimportant. It's also meaningful that Jaya and Vijaya stop the Brahmavadis, and that Narayan has to come out to bless these people somehow or another, that even though they're playing a role now. They've been given a role. They've been given they've been given a part to play in Krishna's Leela. And so Krishna naturally wants to bless them also, and he does so by letting them smell the lotus and tulasi from his feet. He lets them see how the Brahman effulgence that the Kumaras so loved, that Brahman effulgence was only a fragment of the splendor that they were seeing in the presence of Narayan. So it was his opinion. Okay, it was approved of by him. So let's see, Babaji says here, when Jaya and Vijaya were cursed to become Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, they completely forgot their identities as doorkeepers in Vaikuntha. This also happened by the Lila-shakti of Bhagavan. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for them to play the role of Bhagavan's enemies. One should not think, however, that their feeling of animosity towards Krishna was caused by the curse of the Kumaras. It took place by the will of Vishnu. But Bhagavan himself did not have any animosity towards the two brothers. That would be superficial to understand that way. If you understand it the way that it was explained, it's a Leela. But Bhagavan himself did not have any animosity towards the two brothers. Generally, it is seen that when one person gets angry and abuses another, the second person reacts in the same way as the first. Bhagavan, however, did not react to the anger of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Shishupala, or Dantavakra in the same mood. So, of course, acting is an interesting thing, because it is certain that if Krishna is acting and he's playing the role, and the Jaya and Vijaya playing the roles of the demons, then one would expect that they would have some feeling of separateness from the role. But of course, this separateness from the role, in order to fully relish the experience, let's say, one has to become that thing, right? If one knows, I mean, this is why often I met one actor once in Rishikesh. He'd come to the yoga ashram. He was from Hollywood. And so I was a little bit curious because I hadn't met anyone from Hollywood before. And so I asked him, doesn't it become difficult if you get cast in certain roles that you start to become more and more like that? And sometimes that can be very difficult, especially if you have to play someone who's evil. Then it might have a, you know, you're playing that role is somehow or another going to affect your consciousness. Well, that might apply in some cases, of course, but especially when one has to play a role socially, right? When you're playing a role socially and you have to, you know, for so many hours a day, you are playing a particular role in a worldly environment in which everything screams, this is not me. Unless you're very fortunate, right? And your environment reflects your own true sense of self. So anyway, we're all playing roles, yeah? So here, it depends, and we're playing that role, like in what way we're playing that role. Of course, Hiranyakashipu and so on, they're not an example, they're there to play a role. And they are playing an example, but that example is the example of a particular state of consciousness that is not conducive to anything better than being killed by God. So now that's okay, being killed by God is not a bad thing. Yeah? In a sense, that's really I was watching a conversation, well, we're going to continue on with this because I really don't think I'll be able to. I will see how long it goes on because I'm already only at the beginning. Right? But I'd like to continue on with this, and I really, you know, who knows, this Priti Sandarbha thing is going to probably go on for some time. My goal now is very seriously to do the whole thing. So we're only on the 7th Anuccheda, and there's 420 Anucchedas, and some of them are equally as long as some of the ones that we've already seen. So it's going to take a while, but I think that it's worth it. And I don't mind now. I feel a little bit patient about my other work and other books that I want to get published and so on. I more or less feel that I feel confident that those will happen with a little that Krishna will arrange for that. But at any rate, let's go on with the Jaya and Vijaya story. So, Napisa, let me see this, where were we? So where we left off was that, okay, Tatra Toyor Vairabhava Prapto Khalu Manikritatam Nasyat. So don't go thinking that it was the Munis who caused Krishna to, or caused Vishnu here, to curse, excuse me, it was the Munis who cursed Jaya and Vijaya. So don't go thinking it was their curse that was the cause of what happened. It was Krishna's own wish. It was Narayan's own wish. It was Vishnu's own wish. I shouldn't use the word Bhagavan. Let's use Bhagavan as a kind of a generic term. That includes Narayan, Vishnu, and all those terms, but also Krishna himself. But for Krishna, I wouldn't use Bhagavan so much. I prefer to just use Krishna. So the feeling of animosity towards Bhagavan acquired by Jaya and Vijaya was certainly not caused by the curse of the sages, the Kumaras, because he himself states that his desire was the reason for it. So, napisa tadiya vairabhavaya sampadyate. So, napisa. So what is that? That the whole thing was that swechamayasya, and that is what he's going to say. So napisa tadiya vaira bhavaya sampadyate. So the activities of the activities of Jaya and Vijaya within the Leelas of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu and so on, that those did not produce an inimical attitude, a reciprocal inimical attitude in Bhagavan. Okay? So for Krishna, everybody in actual fact, right? Everybody in actual fact is playing a particular role. Right? And most of the time, that particular role, because it's identified with the temporal body, is only a temporary thing. And so our experience is based on that. But we have seen, it's psychologically true, that if you return a Vaira Bhava with Vaira, if you give a Vaira Bhava, if you have an inimical attitude towards somebody, then generally speaking, the response is with some enmity, Vaira Bhava. But in this particular case, that is not what happened. So Jaya and Vijaya, they act as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and they are asuras, and they are Krishna's enemies, and they actually fight with him. But they actually come and insult him, challenge him to a fight, like in front of a wrestling match, you know. At the beginning of the wrestling match, the two wrestlers in modern popular entertainment wrestling, they come out and insult each other. They hurl insults at each other. They belittle each other's manhood. They say, prepare to die. Mm-hmm. They strut. They strut. Mm-hmm. That in itself is part of the show. But in a real worldly fight, just put yourself on the outside of a tavern and watch what's going on. They hurl insults at each other. They look each other in the eye. Is this going to go any further? Is this actually going to come to physical blows? But they don't want to give an inch. They don't want their manhood to be placed in doubt. They will not retreat. These are all the Kshatriya spirit that sometimes men enjoy playing. Of course, it does end up with a fist fight, and it comes to blows. That's part of the fun, just like sex results in orgasm. You have to have the fight and the victory, like the hunter standing over his prey, like Durga standing over Mahishasura. So, but in this particular case, because it was purely a Leela, even though for the sake of the rasa, they had to give themselves completely to the role, the role was predestined. The role was predestined from all eternity, that Krishna would win, that Vishnu, that this fight between Bhagavan and the demon, that it would result in Bhagavan's glorious victory, because he is the hero of all heroes. And he takes different forms in order to play the role of hero and to save the world. In the case of Hiranyaksha, of course, it was literally he saved the world, right? The world fell into the pit. The world fell into the Garbhodaya ocean. And Varaha had to come and pluck it out. Or who knows what would have happened. All of us, maybe this is when the flood happened. That mythical flood. A partial inundation of the world. So Varaha had to come and save the world. Who knows where the story came from? And he came out, and knowing this, Varaha was actually pleased that the earth had fallen into the water. And so he came to stop the hog going into the gutter water of the universe, to pluck it out. It's fallen into the filth. We have somehow or another pluck it out, and along comes Hiranyaksha and says, hey, leave it down there. For some reason, leave it down there. Who knows? We'll get a chance to see that, but that's the way the world is going. The doomsday clock ticks in the world of conscious people in the world. So, let me stop here. I'm going to just continue straight on with another hour of this, but I'm going to stop here as this will be the first hour.